Tuesdays lunchtime. And do not forget, SEC Media Days do roll on. 12:35 will be OU Brent Venables. 1:35. Oh, yeah. At 1:35 will be Mizzou Eli Drinkowitz. And at 1 o'clock, out on the D4 Land Services hotline, Olin Buchanan of Texags live from SEC Media Days. But Tuesdays at 12, baseball, Ray, baseball. We hang out with Joe Sheehan Newsletter, all things MLB. He, too, on the D4 Land Services hotline. I've asked him before, I'm like, why don't you just fly in every Tuesday from New York and hang out inside the Charles Schwab studio? He hung up on me, but that's okay. Joe, what's up, dude?
Every time you do the barbecue read, I think about it, though.
Well, yeah.
Think about flying in for lunch.
Well, it's lunchtime anyway, which for you, being in New York, it's 1:01 right now, something like that, right? So you're either just after lunch or you're waiting to have lunch, right?
No, dude, I'm a writer. Man, this is breakfast time for me.
Oh, God. No, you're not just a writer, but legitimately, you watch every game. So you're watching West Coast. You're not, your writing's not even done until 3, 4, 5?
Well, now with the pitch clock and everybody moving up their start times to half hour, what used to be like a 1 o'clock into the night tends to be closer to midnight. But after you've watched the games and you've been up talking, we have a Slack for the subscribers. So I'm on there posting. Sometimes I'm on Blue Sky. I'm figuring out what I want to write. It takes a little time to wind down. Like my optimal schedule is probably like sleeping from 2:30 to 9:30, something like that. And sometimes it leaks later. Today I had a VSiN hit at 10:30, so I got to get up early for that and kind of do my prep for that. Tuesdays are a little bit different because of the additional media, but yeah, I've always been a night owl, Louis. So gravitating to this job, hasn't been all that difficult. I did it from the West Coast for a long time, of course. So it was an earlier. I remember getting up for you at 7:30, 8:30 in the morning at times, and you'd be waking me up to tell me stuff. Hey, Louis, what's going on, man?
Joe would be like, "Really? That's cool." And I'm like, "Thanks, man. You're that guy, Lee." Good times, Joe. Tell me. How the Red Sox won 14 straight. Last time we talked, they had 10 straight. Well, All-Star Game 1 plus 3 out of the All-Star break. Red Sox can't lose right now.
No, they can. It's really run prevention more than run scoring. You think about classic Red Sox teams hitting the ball off the monster, over the monster. This team doesn't have that kind of offense, especially with Roman Anthony, who's the top hitting prospect. He's been out all year, pretty much, since early May. There's questions about when he's going to come back, but they've made it work by playing exceptional defense, particularly in the outfield, and getting excellent starting pitching. They'll get Ranger Suarez back tonight. He's been good for them. Sonny Gray. They have 3 rookie lefties in Bennett's a right. Jake Bennett, 3 rookies. Jake Bennett, Peyton Tolley, and Connolly Early have been very effective for them as well. So they're just getting it done with pitching and defense, and it's an unusual way for a Red Sox team to win. They got away with one last night. They were pretty sloppy last night, but were able to beat up the Orioles bullpen for some runs and come back and win that game. So it's a great story. I know I have a lot of Red Sox fans and subscribers, and they were trying to fire Craig Breslow at the same time that Breslow was firing Alex Cora. Well, now you've got Chad Tracy is now what is it? They're 43 and 31 under Chad Tracy now. He's looking like the manager of the year. And they still might get Anthony back. They still might get Garrett Crochet back, who hasn't pitched since May as well. So, there's some upside here. But I think the one thing we know for sure is that the Sox won't be sellers at the deadline.
So, can we quantify the difference it made in firing Alex Cora? Was that the key that unlocked them?
I don't like doing that because some of that is always going to be, look, they were 9-19 when they fired Cora. And they were not that bad. Teams tend to fire their manager when they're underperforming. So the Red Sox weren't really a 9-19 team at that point. I know Wilson Contreras had a comment the other day about how it does feel different ever since they fired him. And I think that's retconning a little bit. I thought at the time it would help because Chad Tracy, who was their AAA manager for a number of years, I thought he'd do a better job of getting the younger players into the lineup. Alex Cora didn't seem to want to commit to Marcelo Meyer, to pick one example. And Chad Tracy didn't really either. He was platooning Meyer. Meyer didn't hit. He eventually got injured. He's not a factor now. But the reasons that the Red Sox have won don't seem to me to be all that connected to the hiring of Tracy or the firing of Cora.
Okay. So it's truly neutral. He hasn't hurt them, obviously, but he hasn't necessarily fixed some of the complaints that when Cora was there.
No, because you still have, guys, Jaron Duran hasn't really hit. The veterans, Contreras and Gray. Craig Breslow, who, again, not a very popular guy in Boston 6 weeks ago. If you look at his offseason now, you go back to last August. They extended Aroldis Chapman, who's been great. They traded for Sonny Gray. They traded for Wilson Contreras. They traded Kyle Harrison, who's a left-handed pitcher who they got in the Devers trade. Now, that looked like a really bad trade for a while. Kyle Harrison was very good for the Brewers for the first 8 weeks of the season. Well, Chad Durbin, who's the third baseman they picked up in that deal, actually hit the game-winning home run last night. He's been great, pretty much the middle of May. So all of the things that Breslow was getting criticized for, have actually, when you look down, you look and say, Craig Breslow had a really good offseason, and his work is a very big part of the reason why this team is good right now.
Outstanding. So, with the way the Red Sox are playing, can I, or should I wait, shut down one of the wild card spots? Because we know the winner of the AL East is one. Are the Red Sox now the other? So all the other teams are really fighting for one wild card spot?
I don't think they've locked that up just yet. I mean, there really are concerns with this offense. And if they were to lose Contreras for any length of time, they'd really struggle to score. They struggle to score as it is. So I don't think you can lock that up. I agree with you. The number 2 team in the AL, you're getting some buzz about maybe the Yankees falling out of the playoffs, but the pitching is it's too good. I mean, even though they can't hit, the pitching is just too good. They're going to get Carlos Rodon off the IL here in about another 2 weeks. They go 8 starting pitchers deep. There are divisions in baseball that don't have 8 good starting pitchers. So, the Yankees, I think, are going to be fine. So, yeah, second place in the AL East is in. And then you're talking about second place in the AL West, which is, Tigers, Twins, White Sox, Guardians. And it's not clear right now who that's going to be. And then you've got, the Astros, Rangers, Mariners, whoever finished second in the West. I think there are still 2 of those spots remaining. So if you think about the AL playoff picture, the AL, you've got AL East 2 teams, and then 4, maybe 7 teams, plus the Red Sox. That's 8 teams, maybe conclude the Orioles, 9 teams fighting for 4 remaining playoff spots. Now, that's going to get all jumbled up here in the next couple of weeks. I mean, going into, I wrote about this last week, there are a lot of teams that these last 17 or so games to the break were going to determine their direction. And we've already seen, the Orioles went into Houston and stuffed the Astros over the weekend. And all of a sudden now the Orioles look more like a buyer and the Astros look more like a seller. The Guardians have played well out of the break. So, they look like they're comfortably going to be, I think they're going to end up winning that division. Okay, what does that mean for the White Sox? What does that mean for the Tigers? You have a number of teams, Louis, that there's a big disconnect between their underlying performance and their record in the standings. So you look at the Tigers and say, well, they're pretty far back, but the numbers say they've actually been the best team in the division. What do they do with Tarek Skubal? It's such a scramble right now. The NL might even be worse. You've got 5 teams separated by a game for the last playoff spot. It's just, we've had years like this. I'm not saying we've never seen this before, but it does feel like we have fewer teams declaring their direction 2 weeks from the deadline. Deadline's 2 weeks from today in 4 hours, than I can remember in other seasons. And that's why every night, everything shuffles around. The Astros get swept, but then they go out and they beat the Marlins. Well, now the Marlins have lost 7 in a row, and the Astros are still kind of hanging in there. I wish I was talking about better baseball teams. That's my bias. I wish baseball focused more on the great teams now, but it is interesting to see all of the bouncing around that's going on in the middle of the standings right now.
I actually, what you just said is something I 100% relate to, because I kind of am a fan of greatness. I've never hated dynasties. I love great. I could sit there and just watch a random game involving greatness. We don't have that, other than the Dodgers, truly, in the way the Red Sox are playing right now. And this is just a stretch of greatness. And when I watch a lot of teams, I know I'm watching mediocreness, and it's hard for me to watch random when it's mediocre. Look, I can watch the Astros. I can watch the Cubs. I hate the Rangers, so I'm not going to watch them anyway. I'm having trouble watching randomness, though, when I know it's not really good.
And by lowering the threshold for getting into the playoffs, first in 1994, then in 2013, I believe, in 2012, they went to the 10 teams, and now in 2023, going to 12 teams. All you're doing is guaranteeing that the focus is going to be on these teams that are right around 500 and trying to squeak into the playoffs. And we just won't care that much about the Dodgers and the Brewers and the Yankees and the Rays because they'll have locked up a playoff spot already. It's not the way I wish baseball were, but I understand. I disagree that this is better, too. I think baseball has put all its eggs in October and saying we just want to have a big playoff field and lots of playoff games, and we want to be the NBA or the NHL in that regard. But I think it's given up September, and September used to be a really special month in baseball, and it just isn't.
I'm going to put you into a corner with Tariq Skubal. Since everyone else has weighed in, you got to weigh in now. Is he going to be moved?
I was saying when the Tigers were going 6-21 or whatever it was in May, it looked like he'd be a lock to come off the IL and get traded. Then with them playing better, I suspected that they would hold on to him and try to make a run because after this, it's going to be hard to replace Tariq Skubal. I want to say Jeff Passan yesterday had a note saying that actually Scott Harris was leaning towards trading Tariq Skubal. That surprised me because, like I say, there are two things happening. One, I think the Tigers can win this division, and this is kind of the end of a run that you've had with the Skubal team, and I think you kind of owe it to the fans, owe it to your team to kind of continue that run. The other thing, though, Louis, is Tariq Skubal is a rental. He's a free agent at the end of the year. He's going to hit the market, so you're trading for 10 starts plus a playoff run if you get there. And if you look at recent history, rentals just don't return very much value. All of your value at the trade deadline is trading 4 years of Mason Miller, 2.5 years of Juan Soto, trading guys who have control left. That's how you get the big packages. Even the best players who are rentals just don't return very much in deals anymore. And because GMs know that there's too much, you're giving up too much value in trading top prospects that you can employ for 6 years for no money to get 2 months of a good player who, by the way, over 2 months, anybody can be anything. So you might trade for Tariq Skubal, and he's good, but he's not great for 2 months. That happens. So I just don't think Harris can get enough back, even for Skubal, as good as he is, because he's a rental. And that's just going off, if you look at, you remember 16, well, you're a Cubs fan. You'll remember 16, when they traded for Aroldis Chapman.
Yep.
Gleyber Torres was a top 15 prospect at the time. And they traded him for 2 months of Aroldis Chapman. And lights fly forever, and they don't regret that. But that's really the last time you saw a prospect of that caliber go for a rental. It's just not done anymore. So, Harris may think, we're not going to make the playoffs. I got to get something for Skubal, and I understand that. But I just don't think he's going to get enough to warrant the trade.
We're visiting with Joe Sheehan of the Joe Sheehan Newsletter. He joins us on the D4 Land Services Hotline here on the Louis Bellina Show. And, okay, back to the whole concept, and help me here. The only teams he would have maximum value for are teams that know they could slot him like 1-2 in the playoff rotation. And still, he wouldn't equal the value you're talking about.
Right, because, think about the how little guys get paid in their first year, their second year, their third year. Okay, now their first year arbitration. If you can trade, if you acquire a guy who's a 3-win player, I'm not even talking about like Kevin McGonigal, who's going to be Rookie of the Year, or J.J. Weatherholt. If you just get a guy who's good and produces, 1 or 2 wins a year for 3 years, you're making an enormous profit on that player. And you have upside from there too, because sometimes you will trade. Who was the reliever they traded for Yordan Alvarez? Josh Fields.
Yeah.
Sometimes you'll trade Josh Fields for Yordan Alvarez, and that'll be the signature move of your entire career.
Or is it Larry Anderson for Jeff Bagwell?
Larry Anderson for Jeff Bagwell. Doyle Alexander for John Stoltz. These trades used to happen a lot more often. They just don't anymore because of the value that young players hold. There used to be let me get this right. The gap between what a regular player, veteran player, produced and what he earned, and what a young player produced and what he earned used to be much smaller. But now that young players arrive in the major leagues pretty much already ready to go, and because of the payroll structure, the minimum salary has risen so much more slowly than the rest of the salary structure, the value you get from those pre-ARB players, and even from players in their first year of ARB, is so great that it just makes it that much harder to trade them for 2 months of even a superstar. So that's just, it's the economics of the game. I've been saying for forever now, you got to really triple the minimum salary. You got to catch up from all these years of not not having it be high enough, because it would also affect the dynamics of young players versus older players. It would affect the trade deadline. So until we get that, though, it's just very hard for these teams to trade their top prospects for 2 months of anybody.
Joe, quick timeout. Let's come back. Let's hang out some more.
Cool.
Joe Sheehan of the Joe Sheehan Newsletter, hanging out with us on the D4 Land Services hotline here on the Louis Bellina Show, Tuesday edition. If you ever need a custom metal building, and I mean like from the ground up, it's just one of many, many, many things they do at D4 Land Services. And if you want to find out everything they do, go to D4landservices.com.
Activate. Spin Cherokee football Saturdays, starting with the game day show, to the game, to the call-in show, and only on the Zone 1150 AM and 93.7 FM.
The Louis Bellina Show, presented by CC Electric, Residential, Commercial, and Industrial Services. It's what they do at CC Electric. We're joined again. We get to hang out more with Joe Sheehan, Joe Sheehan Newsletter. Hey, man, what in the wide, wide world of sports is a Joe Sheehan Newsletter?
It's a place you can read about baseball all year long. It's something I've been writing now for more than 16 years. Thousands of people subscribe. Definitely a stathead flavor to it, but I like to think it's pretty readable as well. So that, a lot of different types of sports fans enjoy it. But like I said, enjoy these conversations with Louis. That's a pretty good sense of the tone that I give in the newsletter. Check out JoeSheehan.com. There's a whole bunch of free stuff there. You can check it out. Excerpts. I did a whole free week a couple of weeks back. Just scroll through. You can find those articles. There's also a page of maybe 30 free pieces from the archive you can check out. Just get a good sense of what I do. It is a subscription product. It's one of the first subscription newsletters. And like I said, I've been doing it for 16 years. It's a lot of fun.
So where do they go to check it out again? JoeSheehan.com?
JoeSheehan.com.
How do you spell the last name? Because I've tried for 38 years now, and it's one of the hardest names I've ever come across.
.com.
All right, there you go. The Sheehan part, though. S-H...
S-H-E-E-H-A-N. The Dodgers... Hey, I got a baseball comp. I can use a baseball comp. The Dodgers pitcher, Emmett Sheehan, spelled the same way.
I don't even want to try. JoeSheehan.com, and you can find out everything he does. You can check out, free excerpts, like you said, of the newsletter. And look, if you love baseball, what Joe does is love baseball too. It's just that simple. And it's the greatest steal deal in the history of newsletters because, he tells you get X and then he does 7X and 10X because then he just gets motivated and just keeps sending stuff out. And you're like, okay, man, awesome. JoeSheehan.com to check it all out. Joe, the eternal debate that I think has been since the end of the first month of the season is the Astros. And it's like the whole world knows they should sell but them. And they're just damned and determined. And you have an owner that doesn't believe in giving up. You have a GM that realizes he's going to be fired at the end of the season. So he's coaching like his life depends. He's GMing like his life depends on it. And there's no universe that I see a spot of lasting to. I look at the Astros and their situation is so untenable it kills me.
And then we go back to the standings and they're 3.5 out of the division. And it's just very, very hard, I think, to convince management and ownership of the Astros that if we're 3.5 out, we shouldn't be trying to win here. And I have to be honest with you, in an era where so many teams aren't trying to win, when so many teams are eager to tank and eager to go into a rebuild, there is something commendable about Crane's desire to not do that. I recognize that. But I'd also look and say, if you look at the underlying numbers, I use third order records, my own colleague, ClayDavenport.com. And basically it's, okay, this is your record, but how well have you actually played if you kind of dig into the numbers? And the Astros are actually 3 games worse than even that 48 and 54 record. They're only better than in the American League, the Royals and the A's. So when you kind of look at it and say, how good are we really? They're not that good. We've talked about, the depth issues being tested. Then they traded for Colton. They traded Gordon and McCullers the other day, kind of giving up on both of those guys. I don't know where a team with this starting rotation and this bullpen is going to prevent enough runs. Now, if you told me this was a 2017 Astros team, okay, bad example. But if you told me this was a team that's going to score 900 runs, I might be on board with it. But I'm simply not when I look at this offense, which is decent. But other than Alvarez, it's Alvarez carrying like a bottom 15 offense. And that's just not going to be good enough with this pitching staff. So again, analyzing the roster, it's very clear this team needs to be a seller. I said they were a 500 team at the start of the year. With the injuries, they're worse than that. But when you look at the standings and you see them 3.5 out of first place, that is a hard message to send.
They're 3.5, and they're lucky to be 3.5, and that's an overperforming 3.5.
I completely agree with all of that. I'm saying that if you're Crane, and maybe even if you're Brown, all that matters is the 3.5.
Yeah, and I like what you said, though, at the start of that. That's the kind of owner you want, though. You want someone who's fighting to the last soldier. You want someone who's never give up, don't ever give up. That's what you want. You don't want the owners that never even got into the fight.
That's why I can't really come down that hard on it. Like, I can give you the cold, stathead viewpoint. They should sell, but I'm never going to be as mad at the owner who doesn't sell as I'm going to be at the owner, and we're going to get one or two of them this year that is closer to a playoff spot and tells the GM to sell. But to me, there's no particular number I want to put on it, whether it's 2 games or 3 games, because it depends. Like, is the division in play? Like, if you're the Astros, both the division and the last wild card are reasonably in play. If you're the Marlins, you're probably only playing for that one last wild card spot. Like, there's a different match for each team. But give me the owner who doesn't want to sell over the owner who does. And that's why I think Crane's last 4 years, since firing James Click, hiring Brown, taking advice from all kinds of people who just don't know what they're talking about, I don't think it's been a great look for him. But if you look at the body of work over the last 15 years, who'd take over, 10 or 11?
Yeah, that sounds right.
Yeah, he was right about the time they went into the rebuild. Like, he's been one of the best owners in baseball over that 15-year period. That's not just based on the outputs, but it is based on the outputs. Let's say, lost his mind a little bit these last 5 years. But I would say, unquestionably, he's been a good owner for Astros.
No, that's fair. Jim Crane took over the Houston Astros officially on November 22nd, 2011. That's when the vote went through. So I guess 2012 would be kind of like, the takeover date
so
thing.
This is 15th year.
Yeah. Texas Rangers, they want to buy. They are also thin with talent. They're realistically a team. Okay, have you looked at them in the same context of the record at this point? Is underachieving, overachieving, or just right?
Overachieving, but rounding error. They're 48 and 52 if you look at the underlying numbers, which is reasonable. Once you're within, it's like war, Louis. Like inside of a win, you don't really get into too big fights about it. If I tell you one guy is 4.8, the other guy is 4.2, they're basically the same. This is the same thing. The Rangers are a 500 team so far. Obviously, injuries have affected that. I think they're in a similar position as the Rangers are better than the Astros.
Mm-hmm.
And they're closer to first place. They're closer to a playoff spot. So all of the reasons. But I also think that when you have Corey Seager and Jacob deGrom and Nathan Eovaldi, you just can't burn a year. You just don't have enough time left where those guys are all going to be good that you can waste a year. So I think the structure of the roster tells me they have to go ahead and try to buy. And it'll be tough. Sebastian Walcott, their top prospect, is back. They're not going to trade him, but he's going to DH the rest of the year. He's got some arms, but they created a lot of their depth to get Mackenzie Gore, which hasn't really worked out. I don't think they can compete for the very top, like the schoolboy class of guys at the deadline. But I also think they can be improved with a couple of relievers. Really, an OBP infielder, I think, would help them. It's a tough roster. They're kind of working around like if I'm going to play short and Seager's on it. By the way, Seager's been terrible. Corey Seager is a big part of the reason this team is just 500. He's been awful when he hasn't been injured. So, you got to get him back healthy. You got to keep Wyatt Langford on the field. Like, there are things that are beyond the trade deadline this team needs to do. But, I called them a wild card team at the start of the year, and I'm sticking with that.
I'm actually impressed if the Rangers are just a rounding error away from where they should be, because I look at the volume of injuries, and then their pitching staff was supposed to lead the way. And when you look at them now, they have been kind of awful versus expectation, where even a Jacob deGrom is not, okay, he hasn't been awful, but he hasn't been dominant. Evaldi's been bad versus expectation. Gore hasn't panned out. Rocker and Leiter are just space fillers. Nothing's went the way they thought, and they're still a rounding error away.
Yeah, I understand. These numbers take all that into consideration. They're saying, okay, how good have you played? And you look at it, if you look at the shortfall, really, the 2-game shortfall, it's They're about 15 runs short of where they should be offensively. They should have scored 430 runs. They have 415 or so. And they've given up about nine fewer runs nine more runs than they would have expected to. So it's a balance. There's no, like I was writing about the Marlins today, and the Marlins have underperformed their record by 5 wins, and it's really easy. They've been terrible at hitting in high leverage situations. But you can look and say, okay, they're just having a bad year at high leverage, and that's cost them 5 wins. It's a little harder to figure out where the Rangers' shortfall is. You mentioned the injuries, but this takes into account the injuries. That adjusted number is only measuring the players who have played. So Corey Seager not being there for 40 games isn't really getting folded into that. So it's a little complicated. Clay explains it. ClayDavenport.com if people want to go and learn more. But he was one of the original guys with us at Baseball Perspective. He was one of him and Gary Huckabee started it and then invited the rest of us in to launch the original book. So Clay knows what he's talking about.
A Baseball Prospectus reference. Man, I remember every year waiting for you guys to say it was ready.
It comes out a lot earlier now. I remember, because I would always fight for it to come out later so we get the best information in there, trades and signings and everything. And now basically, I want to say the deadlines are like December for publication in February. So the book does come out a lot earlier now, but I think that the way we did it, getting all that late information in, made it a better book.
Joe, have an amazing week. Okay. I say plans. Is there a series? Is there something like you have spotlighted in your head for the week?
No, just because there's so many just teams that are scrambled up in this wild card. I did focus mostly on the Orioles and Red Sox last night. Red Sox was at 14, well, it was 13 going into 14 last night. That's probably going to be what I'm locked in on tonight, I would say as well. Yankees-Pirates, if they play it here tonight, that's interesting because the Pirates have been such a shock. They've got the second-best offense in baseball, and nobody saw that coming. And then West Coast, probably, I don't know, I guess the Diamondbacks, because I enjoy watching them with Corbin Carroll and Kel Marte. That'll be the late game I'll be focusing on.
Joe, go be awesome. Thank you always, brother. You know how much I appreciate it and enjoy it.
Thanks, brother.
Later. Joe Sheehan of the Joe Sheehan Newsletter joined us on the D4 Land Services hotline. And again, we just talk baseball. Baseball, Ray. Baseball. D4 Land Services. Have you ever need help with your land? Like you need the land excavated. You need help getting your land cleared. You need, forestry mulching, pond construction. Yes, help with your land. Go to d4landservices.com, d4landservices.com. SEC Media Days continue when we return here on the Louis Bellina Show on The Zone.
Listen to The Zone at RadioAguilan.com. Thanks to Loyalty Plumbing. The pros at Loyalty Plumbing are ready to serve you 24/7. Give them a call at 979-977-6117.
It is halftime on the Louis Bellina Show. That means we're going to 2 o'clock. It's 12:35. It's lunchtime thanks to Rudy's Barbecue, home of the green chili stew. SEC Media Days roll on. Here all week long, we're going to hear from a different coach the Aggies are going to square off against this upcoming season. Oklahoma. Aggies are going to Norman. It is the next to last game. It's the game before Texas. That is the toughest stretch of the season, easily. Here's OU head coach Brent Venables from SEC Media Days. What did he have to say? Again, he was pretty good, actually. Normally, I find him pretty dry. He's pretty good. Brent Venables, OU head coach.
I appreciate it, Greg. Thanks so much. Good to be here with everyone. As Greg said, excited to be here this time of the year. This is my 33rd year in coaching, my 5th year at Oklahoma, and my 3rd SEC Media Day. This time of the year never gets old. It certainly goes by fast, though. On behalf of Roger Denny, our athletic director, Joe Harris, our president, and Randall Stevenson, our chair of football, and our board of trustees, I have to say it's an extreme honor to be here to represent both our program and our University of Oklahoma. Everything that we've done for the last 7 months, as we know, builds to this moment. And this is a very energetic, and there's a buzz in the air. There's an excitement across the country, people that love college football. And with kickoff, training camp is just around the corner for us here in 16 days, and our kickoff against UTEP 46 days from now. So really exciting times. I'd like to thank Commissioner Sankey and his entire staff for, again, all the countless depth of the staff that they have to not only put this event on, but all that they do, the leadership, to their tireless work to make the SEC from top to bottom the premier conference in all of intercollegiate athletics, a first class in everything that we do. I want to take this opportunity as well to recognize and give gratitude to our incredible donor base and our fans, their investment in our program, their commitment, their passion, their love, the impact on the success that they have for us as a program. It truly does take everybody, and again, I can't thank them enough. Incredibly fortunate when it comes to that. Thanks to the great city of Tampa for hosting this event, putting on a first-class event. Baker Mayfield recommended to Mike Houck, our SID, to go to Charlie's last night for a good steak, and it was absolutely phenomenal. Players really enjoyed it, and the butter cake is better than what they said it was going to be, and so I highly recommend that. And but I appreciate all the media, all of you for being here, especially the Oklahoma media. I'm going to give you the flowers one time a year. If you're lucky, I'm going to give it. But no, I just want to thank you for your all your hard work covering our program. Certainly our players that are here today. You all are going to really enjoy your time with them. And then finally, just before I answer any questions, I also want to express my love and appreciation for the amazing staff that I have, and for the players that are here, and especially for the players that are still back in Norman, and their body of work, their commitment, just their relentlessness over the last 7 months to give us a chance to have the kind of season that we want. One of the many reasons that gets us excited about this year's team is finding the three guys and telling several other guys that were more than deserving that they weren't going to make the cut. And the depth of the leadership that we have in our locker room right now back in Norman is good as that we've had, better than probably that we've had here in the 5 years at Oklahoma. So really excited about that. And the three young men that are here today, several of you have probably already heard from them and visited with them. But our quarterback, John Mateer from Little Elm, Texas, a defensive end, Taylor Wine from Nashville, Tennessee, and offensive guard, Eddie Pierre-Louis from right here in Tampa at Tampa Catholic. These are three young men that, man, they're as good as it gets when it comes to the type of alphas that they are and their ability to elevate everyone around them. But they're going to be able to give you the details about this year's team and where they want to see it going and what they believe this year's team's identity is going to be all about. So you guys are going to love getting a chance to know them a little more. This year's team, we got a lot of really good pieces. The real challenge now is kind of putting it all together to build the best team that we possibly can. Over the next several weeks and several months, the true identity of this football team will be developed through going through really, really hard stuff, the highs and the lows and the challenges of a season. We got to build and stack every day. Got a lot of hard work that's in front of us right now. Don't have a day to waste programmatically, but really looking forward to getting started with them here in 16 days. So with that, I'll be glad to answer questions.
Thank you, Coach Venables. If you have a question, raise your hand. We have Tommy, Jalen, and Kalen with microphones. We will get one to you. We'll come up here, Jalen, right there to our left-hand side in front of me, Coach, about 3/4 of the way back.
Connor O'Gara, OG kickoff with the next round. Coach, is it weird for you to process the fact that despite all the hiking and stadium runs you do, that you're now the oldest coach in this conference?
Nothing's weird to me, but I'll say this. I don't feel old. I'm double nickels, 55. That sounds old, but my spirit's good. I'm in a great spot.
Okay, we'll stay over here on the left-hand side on the far wall.
Hey, Coach, this is Reagan Scarda of Inside Arkansas. SEC success is always proven through winning through the battles in the trenches. How will you replicate the success of last year's defensive line? How will you solve the problems your offensive line has had in previous years?
Well, we returned 4 guys up front. Last year we started 3 freshmen. So what comes with freshmen, guys that haven't played in the SEC or maybe their first snaps in college, you're not as confident, you're not as aggressive, you're not as strong as a 4th or 5th year guy. There's the timing, there's the cohesion. A year ago on offense, we had 9 first-year starters. This year we've got several returning starters, give or take 7 or 8 guys coming back. But up front, we've got 4 returning starters. We have one of the most experienced portal tackles in the country, and Marion Harris to add to that group of 4 players. Jake Michaela, a year ago at this time, he had just gotten on campus from Stanford, and so he went several months without being in a locker room, training and preparing for his first year away from Stanford and that in the SEC. And so I think there's going to be a better version of all those guys. I think they're stronger, more confident. There's more chemistry. There's more cohesion. Certainly there's an experience factor, what it takes to be better in the SEC. And make no mistake, we've got a lot of improvement to do there, offensively speaking. In being able to run the football, we got to run it a heck of a lot better than what we did a year ago. But I do believe in not only them, but the other parts around them offensively. And then defensively, I don't take anything for granted. We lost 4 really good players up front, and 2 at defensive end and 2 at defensive tackle. A year ago at this time, David Stone. Many people, who's a very highly recruited guy coming out of high school, is a top guy in the country, proclaimed him or wrote stories about he might be a bust and things of that nature. And he didn't listen to any of that. He just put his head down and worked and had an outstanding sophomore year. And Taylor Wine's a guy that, going into the summer, he comes to see me, one of the lowest paid guys on our roster, a guy that we offered his senior year in high school in the playoffs. And he asked me if he could get some incentives. And I said, why don't you worry about playing first before we worry about incentives? And so all Taylor did was become an all-SEC player, lead our team in, I think he had 7 sacks and 15 tackles for loss. And so I say that just to remind certainly myself, but everybody that every year there's a new storyline when it comes to players emerging, players coming out of nowhere. This is the line of scrimmage league. Make no mistake about it. The margins are incredibly small. I would argue that if you lose the line of scrimmage in any particular game, most of the time you're going to lose the game. It's not by if you're going to lose; it's by how much you're going to lose. So that's where it starts for us. That's certainly it's not only a mentality. You recruit to that. You nurture that. As we're getting ready to start football camp here, fall camp, our training camp, you develop a tough physical team in fall camp. You want to play that way in the season. That's the way that's what you got to develop during the course of fall camp. But I am excited about the group of guys that we have there up front on both sides of the ball. We've recruited well, we've developed well, and guys are eager to go prove their worth.
Okay, we'll go down the center aisle, 4 rows back, right in front. Barry.
Yeah, Brent, Barry Trammell, Tulsa
Hey, Barry.
World. Brent, last year you came into the season without a lot of hype on the team. This year, quite a bit more. How did you use that to your advantage last year, and how will you replicate it since the buzz about your chances are much higher?
Yeah, I screenshot the list and stuff like that. Sometimes you use it, sometimes you don't. And but we're at the bottom of most lists. I don't know what lists are out there, but most of them, listen, we focus on things that we can control. Do you ever use that as a motivation and for a guy to maybe humble a guy? Absolutely. But at the end of the day, this is a game of performance. This is a game that's about the work, and this is a game where it's decided on the field. As I said, opening up, we've got a lot of work to do. We're not a very good team yet. We have a lot of foundational pieces that, as I said, that we're really excited about. There's a tremendous eagerness. You learned a lot through a year ago. Some of it's affirmation and belief in where maybe a lot of people didn't pick us or talk highly of us a year ago going into the season, and our ability to overcome that, not to block out the noise, to focus on the things that we can control, improve and get better, figure out our identity as the season went along. And, there's a confidence and a momentum that comes from, the success, from the season as well as, again, the way the season ended and the disappointment. I think the hunger of this football team is there. I think the motivation to put themselves in the conversation down the road, the willingness to do the work that it takes to put ourselves in that position down the road too. So we're trying to focus and be rooted in work, rooted in our preparation, rooted in our brotherhood, loyalty, the toughness that it takes to win and do the things that winning requires.
Coach, we'll go over to our right-hand side on the aisle.
Hello, Coach. Jacob Worthing-Care, you on radio.
Good.
Coming off a 6-7 season 2 years prior to 10-3 last year, what are you instilling in your players to that way success becomes the standard at Oklahoma and not just a one-off season? Yeah, I think again you focus on the programmatically your standards, what your non-negotiables are, as a program. You recruit the right kind of people. You got the right kind of staff. There's a development component. Now, obviously, 2 years ago, we were hemorrhaged on offense, had 9 starters that were out, season-ending type injuries, both on offensive line with 10 different starting lineups, and our top 6 receivers unavailable with a freshman quarterback squeezing the ball. It's a bad recipe in this conference, a very unforgiving conference with the defenses that they see week in and week out. So, you look at the things that were going well, you try to build on those, you try to learn from even your injury situation and find ways programmatically to efficiently get better. You're always looking at that. And but you recruit the right kind of guys. I think if you look at defensively speaking, for example, and you saw a lot of it last year, but you see a program that's a developmental program. I think we had 9 starters on defense that were all high school guys that were year 4 for us a year ago, and guys that were homegrown and developed, went through some hard times and ability to get better from those hard times, learning from both the good and the bad, and but creating real momentum. I think that's a very real thing from one year to the next, especially with the amount of returning guys that we have in really all 3 phases. You continue to build on the success and the momentum from a year ago.
That is Brent Venables. That was Brent Venables. He's still Brent Venables, Oklahoma head coach from SEC Media Days. Again, Pick 6 Previews has OU tied for second with Texas. And he has OU winning the tiebreaker, squaring off against Georgia in the SEC championship. And, okay, hated OU's offense, did not buy it all last year. I was 100% correct. And if you weren't with us at 11 when things started here on the Louis Bellina Show, presented by CC Electric on a Tuesday, I was calling myself out for not giving OU credit that I would give A&M or other teams in that what if, and it's the most basic what if, their OC Arbuckle, a year of SEC experience, an offseason to adjust his belief system and grow, and the same thing for Mateer. Because if they're just a year better, and that offense can just be good enough, with their elite, like top 5 in the country defense, OU's a scary team. If they're just a year better. And why can't they be a year better? I hated their offense a year ago. I duck and pray. Even though Mateer is one of the best scrambling quarterbacks in the SEC, he is a pure playmaker, but his decision process, and everyone's like the injury, and no, I didn't like it before the injury. I knew they were winning, but if you watch the games, so OU, they're over under 7.5. Rough. When we return, lunch hour, we got to get out of here. It is the Louis Bellina Show, presented by CC Electric. It is the Louis Bellina Show. I'm hanging out inside the Charles Schwab studio on a Tuesday.
Start your Sunday mornings with the best week ever from ESPN Radio. Yes! Listen in from 6 to 9 on the Zone 1150 AM and 93.7 FM.